So don't make money, but most of them don't know that I have my axe to grind, just like any. Night and day are catching hell. People think I'm doing well just because I sing a few calypso. But that is my misery. Calypso don't make money, but most of them don't know that I have my axe to grind, just like any other man, existing in poverty and this giant ghetto land. But I intend to hang on. Tell them for me no dice. I ain't gonna eat lice. I ain't gonna grow old, sitting in the cold, not me. No way, they gonna have to beat me. They gonna have to eat me, or the heads go roll. Tell them I say, I was born in this land, I go die in this land. Nobody go run me from where me come from. Nobody go run me, lad. Nobody go run me. Nobody go run me. Nobody go run me. Me mama must yam. Me papa must yam. Me woman must yam. Me pickle must yam. Nobody go run me. Nobody go run me. Nobody go run me, lad. Nobody go run me. Life ain't much for us to choose. Some we win and some we lose. But sometimes life is so confusing. I had a lot of friends one time whom I used to wine and dine and gave them bread when they need it. Now most of them against me, take me like the enemy, simply because I am not what they all want me to be. And with the political views I can't agree, but tell them for me no dice. I ain't gonna eat lice, I ain't gonna grow old, sitting in the cold, not me, LG. No way, they gonna have to beat me, they gonna have to eat me, or the heads go roll. Tell them I say, I was born in this land, I go die in this land. Nobody go run me from where me come from. Nobody go run me. Nobody go run me. Nobody go run me. Nobody go run me. Me mama must yam. Me papa must yam. Me woman must yam. Me pickle must yam. Nobody go run me. Nobody go run me. Let go. Well, days I at CBC, work at Halcyon for free, when they went bankrupt and had no money. Because of my tolerance, they gave me the assurance the job belongs to me. But I hear some people high in our society, they don't like my calypso because they can't control me, so they plan to kick out my ass. Tell them, party no dice. I ain't gonna eat lice. I ain't gonna grow old, sitting in the cold, not me shorty. No way. All you have to beat me, all you have to bury me more than 6 feet and more. Tell them I say, I was born in this land, I will die in this land.
Nobody go run us from our land. Dominicans, yes, good afternoon, a special greetings and welcome to all of you locked into that space at this time. We are live on Facebook and also on YouTube. We are streaming this program live on these two social media platforms at this time. A special greetings again, a special welcome, to all of you already locked into the viewing and listening audience at this time. Welcome to that time. It's about 10 minutes past 6 o'clock. Sorry, we are a little late. We had some technical issues. Well, I had some technical issues dealing with earlier, but everything is rectified now and we are good, set, and ready to go. We have a very special packed program for you this evening. Also have some, well, I cannot call these brothers guests again. These guys are part and parcel of Civic Vibes now. So we have two formidable erudite brothers in the house in the name of Brother Zed Lloyd and also Brother Jefferson Winston, better than Asharu. He was there last week. And based on reviews of the conversation we had last week, it was quite well. It was interesting. And so we decided to have a part 2. And who better to add a little more fuel to the flame, as it were, than Brother Zed. So Brother Zed is joining us this evening. Obviously, Alvin Thomas is here as the anchor, and we are good and ready to go. So yes, what is this program each and every Sunday without you, the many fans out there? So please share the live as we are moving around now, as we're about to make a very important start in just a bit. So yes, let me move across to Alvin Thomas so that he can give you guys his opening remarks. Alvin Thomas, good afternoon to you, my bro, and welcome once more.
Brother Lofty, again, a pleasure to have you, bro. Another Sunday for our conversation with our fellow Dominicans at home and abroad. It's always a pleasure to have that engagement with our people. I like to always make the point that we're not here to give, I should say, any directions in the sense, but to have a conversation, to have a dialogue with our people and to point out some of the ills and what we think might be some of the areas we need to focus on. So it's always a pleasure. So a pleasant good afternoon to our many fans who are already locked in on the Facebook page, as well as the YouTube. So my brother Zed, it's always a pleasure to have you, bro.
Same here, brother. Same here.
That dialogue. And of course, Sharo, last weekend, as you said, we had a very interesting conversation with this young man. He was fun. Like the crew had said with Obama's campaign, fired up and ready to go. So I'm sure that fire is still in his belly. So again, I'm looking forward to a really good conversation. I want to make a few comments as it relates to Mayday, but we'll get to that maybe when I do my opening after we're through with all the greetings. But
yes.
We're on the eve of Mayday, and I would definitely like to start off my contribution in that regard. But again, Lofty, pleasure. Say good afternoon to Paula. Wherever you are, Paula, listening. We miss you, man. We need you back here for a couple of programs with us. Good afternoon to Paula. And to the many folks who are celebrating birthdays as well. Civic Vibe want to say happy birthday, anniversaries, any lost ones. We want to send out our condolences, and looking forward to a great program.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Brother Alvin. Indeed, always a pleasure to have you here each and every time. Let me move across to Brother Zed Lloyd. A special good afternoon to you, bro.
Yes, good afternoon, Lofty. Thanks for having me here today. I'm happy to be part of the conversation. I think it's a good day for us together on the eve of workers' rights, Workers' International Day, and the conditions at home for workers, and even for justice. So I'm happy to be here. As Alvin said, I think it'd be great if we start on the issue of that, and I will let him lead, on that. I have some things I'd like to say in that regard before we really zoom into the Dominica aspect of it. I think we can deal with that broader conversation. But like I said, thanks for having me, brother. God bless.
Yes, brother. And thank you as well for willing to come on, taking time off your Sunday. Yes, thank you. All right, Brother Winston.
Yeah,
Sharo,
man.
good evening, bro. Welcome again.
Bless one to everybody, man. As you say, you said it. You gave me a rank, so I didn't have part in Civic Vibes. So thank you for the position, like the commissioner. Anyway, I want to let everybody know that my time here is not just to be on Zoom. My time is to really get for Dominicans to understand the true value of living, and they need to stand up when they know something is not going right for the betterment and for the betterment of their children and the children to come. I just want Dominicans to understand, because I'm always going to be direct to the point. I want Dominicans to understand that you cannot look at people growing wealth and you settling for less and you think it is okay. Okay, you can look at people grow wealth when they work hard for it. But when it comes for the resources of the state, and people are growing wealth and think that they are the kings and queens and the hierarchy of the country, it is wrong. We all need equal right. So we're going to talk today about more points, direction. I want the people to take it serious, and I want the people to understand it's nothing partisan politics for me. It's nothing about scare it, nothing about Linux, nothing about freedom, nothing like that. It's about country and for our brothers, those who are that really unfortunate, those that do not have means to understand they cannot settle for less. So that's what we're going to bring forward today, my brother. You know me on your program. Thank you for having me again, Alvin and Zed. Let's just give God thanks and praises for the journey, and let's just do what we have to do for the better of Dominica.
God bless.
All right, indeed, my brother Sharu, thank you very, very much indeed. As I said, based on the feedback of last week's program, we doing an episode 2 this week. I can tell you, the guys out there, you're in treat for very, very interesting round 2, indeed. Let me just touch some of you guys who are now with us here on the live feed. You guys are in our company, and we always cherish your company each and every time, because without you, that aspect of the programming would not be worthwhile indeed. So Owen Prosper, you're there in the house. Good evening to you. Maury Jules, Jeffrey Brisbane, you're also locked in. Olivia Esprit, Everlasting Peter, Anitha Adams Bernard, good evening to you. Martine Norville, good evening to you. Lucinda McDowell Thole, also there. Caroline Warrington, Carol Olivachi Bruni, you're also there. Good evening to you. Marlene Ostry, yes, well, Mali Ostry, sorry, good evening to you. Lauren Lestrade, you're also there. Caril Fontaine, Dave Bertrand, Patricia Fontaine, Joan Farrell, Bryna Francis, Ziska Syrah, who we got here else? Ivinia Joseph, well, Alvin, you're there with us. Marlene Shillingford, you're also there. Joan Bernard James, you're watching as well. Good evening. Antoine George, you're also there. Stephanie John Baptist, Justina James, Brother David Joseph, Dorian Dorival, Margaret Wallace, you're also there. Good evening to you guys out there. Marvella Defoe, Eliza Louise Gomes, Myrtle Lucien, Jan Harry, all of you guys out there. Teresa Susanna Rule, Derek Mitchell, Clarelyn Warrington, I taught you already. Medina St. House, Brother Franklin Peter, Jennifer Daru, Chris Bogono. Chris, long time to see, long time to hear, my brother. Thanks for being in the viewing audience this evening. Jane Bernard, you're also there. Holly Hodge, is that? Yes, good evening to you. Colleen Sanders, you're also, Colleen Sanders, sorry. You're also there. So the 70 plus of you folks were also there that we can see. We want you to share the live at this time. Remember, we are streaming this program live on YouTube as well, so that those of you who have YouTube, all of you should have YouTube, so that you can even rest on your sofa, lie down on your bed in a more relaxed mood to take in the information that will be dispensed here very, very shortly. Those of you as well who are there watching and listening to the program, but you're there in the incognito mode, as it were. I'm not seeing you, we're not seeing you, but we know hundreds of you there. You are there in that mode. We also want to reach out and shout you guys as well. And please share the live as we are moving on. The numbers to call, I know you guys, you know, it's a new sort of, you know, dispensation, as it were, we are in after COVID. Everything is being done online now. So we know some of you are sort of timid in that area, but you have 2 numbers, 2 telephone numbers that you can call in, just like good old FM radio, and you can be part and parcel of the conversation. These numbers, they are 245-2396. Again, I want to repeat, 245-2396, and also 615-9470. These numbers can get you into the conversation live so that other persons could hear your point, your comment, your feedback as well. So please feel free to use these 2 telephone numbers afforded to you guys out there. Just for you, we have you in mind, and that is why we made those 2 lines available for your engagement. I'll be plugging those numbers in the chat so that you can look in the chat to memorize those numbers so that you can participate in what we will be having here in just a, because you too, you are part and parcel of what is happening. It's a sort of family-oriented conversation. So please don't think that you are listening to 3 guys. No, we are having a conversation together. We are just the conduit for that conversation to take place. But your feedback, your comment, it is very, very crucial. They are very, very crucial in making the program a success. So please feel free to be part and parcel of the conversation, not just this Sunday, but every other Sunday right here. Folks, as I said, we are on episode number 2 of the topic that we had last week. We're discussing basically about a stagnant economy. unfair elections, because we are witnessing in Dominica for some time now, our economy is moving at snail's pace, as it were. And we all agree to some extent that it is as a result of unfair general elections, whereby you get, quote unquote, square pegs in round holes, persons who really cannot come up with the political goods to benefit you, to benefit me. And so as a result, we are lagging. The economy is stagnated in that department. So that is what we are going to revisit this afternoon and add a little more flesh on the skeleton of last week's conversation. So yes, Brother Sharo was there. He set us in stone as it was last week. So let me just start off with him. Well, not start off with him as yet. Let me move across first and foremost to Brother Alvin Thomas, because we have May Day being celebrated tomorrow. That is a holiday in Dominica, a holiday in the region, but it all deals with workers and workers' rights and everything to do with justice and everything. So yes, let us go to hear from Alvin first. He is a very, I can say he is still, because they say once a president, always a president. Alvin played a critical role in the trade union movement in Dominica. And so who better we can hear from now as it pertains to, that aspect we're getting into, which will sure be a good platform now to sort of steer us in the direction of the conversation we're about to have. So Brother Alvin Thomas, again, my brother, welcome and good evening.
Thank you, Lofty. Thank you very much. And again, let me say a pleasant good afternoon to all our many fans that keep coming on. I can see the feed is busy. So good afternoon, and again to our two special guests here, Brother Zed and Brother Sharo. Lofty, let me begin first of all by taking the opportunity to express Happy Workers' Day on this International Workers' Day to all the hardworking people who contribute to make our society a better place. And by that, I'm referring to all the hardworking people, not just in Dominica, but throughout the region and the rest of the globe. And let me say, though, that there is dignity in work. And you, the workers, the nurses, the firemen, the truck drivers, the agricultural worker, should be proud in what you do. The world as we know it is better because of all you do. All that you do in Dominica and all that you do throughout the rest of the world. Without workers, there'll be no nation. Workers lay the building block of every nation, and therefore you matters. The nurses, the teachers, the firemen, the police officer, you matters. So International Workers' Day, May Day, to all the workers in Dominica, the region, and around the globe. Having said that, Lofty, let me add what we are discussing here today, the state of the economy and where we are today as a people, as a nation. I would like to put that conversation in some context. Context meaning that in terms of where we are today and whether we were in a similar state a couple of years ago. Let me quote from our man of the soil, Alfred Levy. You know Mr. Alfred Levy very well, man who penned quite a bit. He was a great writer. And here's what Alfred Levy said back in 1972. That's almost 50-something years ago, 51 thereabout years ago. A nation devoid of a sense of its history is not worthy of the name. A people blind by its past can have no claim to national pride. We need the touchlight of the past to illuminate the present and to guide us to the future. These thoughts are worthy of serious consideration, unquote. And those were penned by Alfred C. Levy of Dominica. So, knowing history helps us to understand how events of the past made things the way they are today. And with lessons from the past, we not only learn about ourselves and how we came to be, but also develop the ability to avoid mistakes and create better paths for our societies. Why am I saying all of that? I'm saying that because This year marks well over a century of the observance of Labor Day, or International Workers' Day as we know it. Started back in 18-something. As we know, America commemorates it the first Monday in September, and then the International Federation of Socialist Group from the Europe and started back in 1889, and they're around the same time. So we observe it the first of May, first Monday in May, and of course, as we said in the US settings, it's the first Monday in September. So that's been with us a long time. Let's come home to Dominica, and I know part of the discussion we've been hearing and part of the talk is that unions are dead, workers will recognize the significance of May Day, nobody celebrated anymore, nobody knows what's the true meaning of May Day. And that is why I started off with a quote from Levy, Mr. Levy, talking about where a person does not know their past, they don't know the future. And let me say, for purposes of the discussion as well, that when you take the CSA that's been around since 1938 as an organization, not a union, 1938, that's almost 85 years ago, became a trade union in 1961. And then that was followed by DAWU, that actually, let me backtrack a bit. DTU was a trade union in 1945, 78 years ago, DTU. CSA was a staff association in 1938, but in 1961, registered as a trade union. And then you had DAWU in 1960, which is 63 years ago, registered as a trade union, and WAWU, 1964, which is about 59 years ago. And all of those unions that I mentioned predates the political parties in Dominica. The Labour Party has been formed in 1955, which is 68, the Freedom Party 1968, and then the UWP in 1988, 35 years. So all came after. And of course, we had the DUPP back in 1961, about with Frank Barron. And I'm saying all of that to say that we as a people need to understand our history. And if we don't understand it and learn from the mistakes, then we repeat what happens in the past, and hence where we are today in terms of the state of our economy, the question of our democracy, injustices, and all of that. Let me quote for you very briefly.
Alvin, your signal seems to be going and coming.
We look at that. My signal went down. Okay.
Yeah, it seems to be going and coming. Yeah.
A wind down in my area, so I'm not sure what. Okay, I'll try my best. But let me. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Yes.
Okay, great. Let me just again put some perspective on that. Back in the 1930s, more precisely around 1938 thereabout, those of us on this program, and I'm sure Zed as a teacher himself is aware of that, you may be, Ansharo, there was what you call a Moine commission that was sent out to the region to investigate and to figure out a series of unrest that was taking place in the islands. The unrest and the violence were dominated the Caribbean scene in what they consider the Depression area. And listen to that carefully. Listen to that carefully. When the Moine Commission came to Dominica in 1938, it was particularly stunned by the wretched conditions which affected 90% of the Dominican population. This led the commission to conclude in part that all of the British West Indian islands, Dominica, hear that? Dominica presented the most striking contrast between the poverty of a large portion of the population, particularly in Roseau, the capital, and the beauty and fertility of the island. As a result, the commission postulated that unless the general social, listen to that, and economic conditions, that's what we're talking today, economic conditions within the islands were improved, the Dominica middle class should not envisage further constitutional advance and development, unquote. Compounding the economic and social deprivation experienced by the laboring and working people were legal obstacles preventing any demonstrable protests against their plight, unquote. How does that relate to what we're saying today? Social and economic deprivation, people not able to protest to stand up for their rights. That is why on a day like today, workers should understand where we've came from, 1938, 1940 to where we are today. We are pretty much repeating and discussing the same issue. The fact that you have social issues back home right now, crime, unemployment, lack of services, the economy is not thinking, people are not working. The fact that you cannot demonstrate or protest because you're being challenged on that. All of that was what presented itself in 1938, well over 85 years ago, and here we are. And that is why I started off with Mr. Levy's quote, that if you do not get a sense of your history, you're not worthy of your name, you're blind to your past, and as such, you're not able to prepare for the future. So it is my hope that as we observe May Day tomorrow, that workers will step back and ask themselves, how did we get to where we are today? What can we do to change that position? And let me also say, Lofty, which that would require a complete different program by itself. All of the political parties that I speak about, starting off with the Labour Party, which is the leader in the formations of parties pretty much, were as an adjunct from the trade union movement. So persons like Emmanuel Loblack and Sean Allfrey, Loblack, a young man at the time, just 28 years old, saw the need to form the union, and out of that, the Labour Party came about. And Sean Allfrey was heading the Labour Party while they were doing on the political front, and Loblack was dealing with the trade union. But why did they do that? Because they recognized in order to get change, there must be legislation. That in as much as, no matter how much you might have the trade union formed, but if you want to get the change that you need to bring about, you have to have one or two things. You have to have persons in the legislature that are sympathetic to the workers' cause and will go in there and make the necessary change and pass the necessary legislation to help them. And hence the reason why established and formed then the first Dominica Labour Party. The rest is history when Loblack came in 1961 and what happened and where we are today. And I'm saying all of this to say that workers must ask themselves, and the young people in particular, because Loblack, as I said, was just 28 years old. Sean Allfrey was young too. All of these folks, Louis B. Noir, Curtis Augustus, and this is Anthony Frederick Joseph, they were all young people. Even myself, when I started in the CSA, I was just in my 20s, 23, 24 years old. And during that period that we're talking about, going back in the 70s, Dominica had a very volatile and what I would say to a rich history. Because during that 70 period, you had the uprising at the St. Mary's Academy. You had Papa D, Daniel Corderon, the 1973 uprising created a state of emergency. You had the Cassie Bruce workers. So there was a lot going on. You had the movement for new development, MD, whatever they call themselves. So, and all these were young people that were energized. And that is why I still have hope, Lofty, that our young people, we need to have that conversation with our young people. I know people keep saying that, oh, these young people don't care. No. We have to figure out the right strategy, the right approach to get the message and to get our young people engaged as our young people were 75, 85, 60 years ago, because they were the ones who brought about and effected the change.
Yes, Alvin, thank you very much, my brother, for laying, as it were, the historical aspect to the whole conversation we're having here. The May Day celebrations, the Human Rights Day, as it were, the Workers' Day, as it were, in Dominica, but not just in Dominica, across the region as well. So thank you, Alvin, for, sort of giving us the background, the story behind the stories, as it were. We know that you did very well and continue to do very well in that department. Zed, let me just pull you in now, right about now, seeing that Alvin sort of, gave us the historical context of things here. How would you want to narrate what Alvin said to where we are today, and maybe, some of your own thoughts, brother?
Well, I think we must come from the history. I want to go a little broader than Alvin. I want to go to the general workers' history, because I think where Alvin lands, it's critical in that Alvin talks about the Moon Commission in 1938. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, it is only in 1933 that America itself organizes about, an 8-hour day for its workmen and its work people. It's like in 1930, in 1933, 34, 35, that is when the Congress really does some serious legislation on workers' rights in America, after tons of decades of people protesting and a few decades of people protesting and doing their thing. But here's the interesting thing, Lofty. The interesting thing is, when you look at the workers' struggle in America, when you look at the workers' struggle in America, we talk about the industrial age. We talk about the first industrial age, and really at the European aspect, where labor laws really come into a sort of prominence in London in that first aspect of the Industrial Revolution, where we're talking from the middle of the 18th century into the middle of the 19th century. And so you have conditions for workers and child labor and all these things. The English society comes under that whole largely thing in terms of Europe, and you have a transformation of rights for workers. The second aspect of the Industrial Revolution involves that American movement, where you have them from the middle of the 19th century going up into, the 20th, where they become into prominence after the World War and everything, and becomes this big industrial nation that no one else has been able to take that title from them henceforth. But what happens in the American context? The labor laws and the advancements that were made in England, those things didn't get transformed to America. So the Industrial Revolution came, but labor didn't get a fair shake, a fair share of justice, of rights, of all those things in America, as had happened in England. In fact, the first country to make a workday legal 8-hour thing was Spain, all the way back in the 16th century. Spain, led long before England and all those places. First country to legalize 8 hours is what you're going to work for in the day. And so in 1886, Lofty, 1886, sorry, you had a federation of American unions that decided, well, enough was enough. They took up the thing like the folks did in England back a century or so before. And they organized themselves in such a way that every 1st of May, they were going to do protests across America on behalf of workers to ensure that the federal government takes up the issue of workers' rights in America. And so that 1st of May comes out of that American experience. That experience would go on annually with every year, strikes, gatherings, just like we would do in Dominica back in Day Lofty. That was what May 1st was for. Yeah. In 1989, the International Federation of Workers, which is considered a socialist organization, made that day an international day of struggle for workers. That's how Dominica is involved in it. That's how St. Lucia is involved in it. That's how Antigua is involved in it. But all of this time this is going on, America, in terms of workers' rights, is still lagging beyond. It would take us until 1933, like I said, before America would come into its own to really look seriously in Congress and decide there are some fundamental things that the federal government needs to do for workers to get their rights. And guess what, Lofty? Here, what were the main things of the union? Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, fair flights in the courts, the right of workers to organize and fight for things like 8-hour days. You hear those things? Those things don't sound anything like workers, do they? Except in the last one.
Yeah.
Well, I bring them up to say, Lofty, that what we learn in that American movement for workers' rights, what we learn in that British movement for workers' rights, that is only through social advocacy that you will get those rights. You will get the rights, not the government, not the prime minister, not the nothing. It is only through advocacy, civic advocacy, that all these conditions and these situations change. And so where are we? How do we connect that in terms of Dominica? We see that we went for a period of awareness. We went for a period of consciousness. We went for a period of action where we actually got motivated in that same American mindset, that same British mindset, to improve the conditions of our workers in Dominica. And what happened over the last 20, 25 years? All of these things have basically been eroded. The value of workers is down in Dominica. The value of native workers is down in Dominica. We have not touched our minimum wage in decades. You understand? The courts are decisive negativity in our system, not executing justice. As you know what's funny, Lofty? The American government made May 1st a day of legal justice. You know what legal justice was about? Courts for the people, justice for the people. That's what they made May 1st, and they took September 1st and made it the day of the workers. And I think it was just because they didn't want to follow the socialist move in Europe that they made something different. So I'm saying, here we are in Dominica. What is in front of us, Lofty? There is a need for advocacy. There's a need for advocacy, and the writing is on the wall. As long as we do not sit down and organize an effective strategy of advocacy, that will not change. Because the history is clear to us. It's clear in Europe, it's clear in America, it's clear in the other Caribbean islands, that the only way you can have transformation of conditions that make betterment for workers, make betterment for citizens, is for the citizens to become an advocacy group on their behalf. And that is what is lacking in Dominica, Lofty. That is what is lacking in Dominica. I will stop here for now.
True. Thank you very much, Zed. Well, you're on fire already. Let me move across for your very pointed points here, Brother Zed. Let me move across to Sharon now so that he can chime in on the conversation. After that, we're talking about, the labor movements, not just in Dominica, as I said, but in the region. I will let you guys hear a clipping from the president of the DPSU, that is Mr. Joseph, in just a while, to hear his thoughts as to some of the achievements made by the unions in Dominica. I guess he was speaking in particular of the DPSU and other unions in Dominica, and also what he thinks that needs to be done in order for better representation of workers' rights in Dominica. We'll hear that in just a bit. But Charo, yes, the floor is yours, my bro.
Loftus, a lot of education, bro. I want to, you see, all that is good, and I want that is good. That is good for But we are at a time where we have to consider that history is a major part of our being, but there's always history created according to the period of time. You understand? Because history goes according to time. If that makes sense to you, Zed and Alvin, because you all are the professors and you want into that. Now, the history we are seeing right now, we have a history for our era, our age, time, and now, and that is a history that have to decide, that we as a people have to decide, what are we going to do? Are we going to listen to the history of the 1964 Act of Civil Act that passed in America, or all them kind of thing, or are we going to understand that we are in a situation and we have to create our own history now? That is what I want Dominicans to understand. I want the people of the region, Caribbean, to understand that I am going direct to the point. We have to create our own history. We have to stand up and we have to demand what we want, and I will go deal with it. That's it. That's our time now. And our time now is for us to understand that Bala and all them great Africans or slaves that did what they have to do for our freedom. So now we have to do what we have to do by calling ancestors to help us. But let's do what we have to do for our freedom, for the other generation can know that we did something for them. So that is the part I want to consider my history. I want us to make a history for change in our time. That's all I'm going to say from there. But all the other history, all the things that come in, I accept it. As I said, is words for thought, is good. It's a lot of things. I mean, you're a bit older than me, but I don't believe of yesterday. I believe in today. I like the stories of yesterday, and we can learn from the stories of yesterday. But right now, I want us to deal with the stories of today, the present,
Yes, indeed,
and how we can change, how we can create change, and how we can follow and listen to certain things for our level of knowledge. But let's do what we have to do now. I cannot go back in the 30s and the 70s and all of that.
True.
That is time is past. Thank the same song we were singing, thank God for another day. What is it? Tomorrow is another day.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you saying, Sharo, is that the history, our history is rich, but we should be more or less learning from that. But we should be able to write about now, create or make our own history.
Yeah. And our history for better, Dominica.
Lofty.
Yes. Zed, 1 minute, Zed.
Don't take me. Hold on, Zed and Loftus, please hold on. I don't want Zed and Mr. Alvin to take me out of context.
No, man, don't do that, my brother. We have enough.
All I'm saying is that history, there will always be history. There'll be history. May his soul rest in peace. The guy who created the flag, Alvin Bully. He'll be in history. That is present history. In the next 50, 60, 70 years, someone will be talking about him. That'll be past history. Let's look at creating our history for a better Dominica, because my aim and my goal is to see my poor brothers and sisters achieve, work hard, and they can succeed, because I was on that trend. And I saw how we decline because of people we put in position to protect us and to make it better, to create the avenue for development, for success. And instead they do that, they block it to their own benefits, their own personal gain. I want to create history at this present 2023. Have a blessed one. Let's continue.
Yeah. Zed, just stick a pin right there. Brother Sharo, I'm getting a number of comments. I guess some of these people were not there last week when you introduced yourself on the program. A number of comments saying, but I cannot connect this brother Sharo. I cannot remember him. So, bro, just do us a little justice again by introducing yourself or reintroducing yourself to the Dominican people. The many folks out there listening and don't know or cannot connect who is Sharo and his connection, his roots to Dominica.
I will consider myself a businessman, and I'll consider myself a successful businessman before the reign of that regime. I will say that because I know how I worked, how I had to make ends meet, especially coming from a family that really didn't have the resources. That's why at the time I said on radio that the AIC don't have anybody representing that know what it is to take $1 to make it $2. They inherit wealth and they can continue. That's
where's
a difference.
Where's your roots from in Dominica?
Me, I'm a Winston.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm a Winston. My mother from the village of Pishnay. She's in the VIs now. My father is in town, Goodwill, had a slight stroke, but getting on. But I'm just a Roseau man, Pishnay man. I'm a Dominican man, bro.
So where you grew up running around?
I grew up in Roseau though, but then we moved to Goodwill. And then I said to Goodwill, went to the Goodwill school, then I went to community high school. It's a history by itself.
Okay,
and that's it, yeah.
What about your store, your business you had? Where was that located?
Lofty, to be honest, if you had a few business in town, I'll be honest with you. I had Sharo for men, Sharo for, and then I had Looks If an Attitude for kids and boys, girls and boys. Then I had a lady store. Then I had a restaurant called Old Stone Grill and Bar. That was basically my restaurant. Then I had a guy called Leonard running it while I was out in the States, but things changed.
Okay.
Then I had a club down in Kinfield. Man, I did so many different things to create employment, bro. And with the challenges. So then that's me. I'm just a small business person that very creative minded by the blessings of God. And I can look at the situation and change it to something successful. That's the gift God gave me.
True.
Is that enough for you, bro? Biography?
That should be enough for the persons out there too, who's listening. Those wanting to connect you better. Thank you, brother. Thank you indeed. Brother Zed, you had a point.
And I want to come in after Zed.
Yes.
Yeah. Brother Sharo, man, we exactly where you at, I'm a man of action, always been. You see, why I wanted to interject was to make it clear to you that, you see, there's ways of fighting struggle, and sometimes the processes have already occurred, and so we can take the processes and translate them into our time. And what the processes that have occurred has showed us is that all what you want to happen there, Brother Sharu, the only way it can happen is for an advocacy movement to be existing in the country. That's what the history showed us. So the history goes back there to give you that sense of the science then that, you know what, look, this is it. This is it. So we don't have to go and search for what it needs to be. You know what we need? We need to be building up advocacy among our youths. We need to be building up advocacy among our women or our young men. We need to be building up advocacy, because as long as we do not build up advocacy, there is no resistance in the system to injustice. No resistance to the system in injustice. And especially in Dominica, where the legal system that is supposed to be providing justice is an architect of injustice. It's an architect of injustice. So take the past, brother, in terms of what it gives. It tells us clearly, if you have advocacy among workers and young people and students, then the country will become vibrant and educative and developed and progressive. And we need that in Dominica right now. The issue of electoral reform comes back to the history again, brother, in that, look at all the countries, the ones that have gotten electoral reform, what made it happen? There was advocacy. The history again, you know, there was advocacy. So what it tells us, if we want electoral reform, we have to have an effective civic advocacy. So right. I want you to see those things when we talk about the history, brother.
Zed, and on that note, someone is asking, the Margaret Wallace is asking on the chat, perhaps you need to break down what is advocacy so that the listening public could better understand what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, I call advocacy empowerment. Empowerment. In advocacy is the point at which the citizen begins to take responsibility for his conditions or her conditions in a society. That's what I call advocacy. And so for you to be on a mission of advocacy, it's an independent mission. It's a mission that is no longer afraid. You no longer fear, because you understand that your conditions has to be determined by you and your strength, your posture, your justice, your whatever, and the laws of the society. So when we talk of advocacy, it is the first step. It is the first stage for that liberation of the citizen from the perils of his society. And so what are the perils we have now? Wage injustice, work injustice. So we should be advocating for things like a law in Dominica for 60-40 of work, that other Caribbean nationals have to come in at a lower percentage than us on our jobs. We should be advocating for reform in our basic wealth gap and wage. It's time for raising the minimum wage in the country. When we look at electoral reform, we realize that if we do not advocate for electoral justice, there will be no parliamentary justice. So all the issues that are affecting us, the basis of their solution is civic advocacy. The only other option, if we don't go that way, it will be violence that will be the solution.
Can I have an input?
Well, Alvin had a point, but
okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sharo. Sharo, okay. Go ahead. I'll come after.
Go ahead, brother.
If I lost my train of thought, if I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, man.
Zed, I want us to be more into the region. I want us to understand that we're in a region. The Caribbean region is our home, you know, and I want us to understand that, have that mindset that we need to work within our home, HOME, home. All right. Now, we have been advocating for the past 21 years. Many lofters have been advocating. I've been advocating. Matt, you, everybody have been advocating. We have done that already. We have reached that stage. We understand that. We understand it's a cause or support something I want to change. Okay, we understand all of that. We're advocating for something. Our problem right now is the government. Let's just put it straight. And I don't have time to waste. And I appreciate the communication between us, but we don't have time to waste on not getting it done. We have been there. We just need to do actions. That's what we are. We give a group of fellas work to do. They cannot work. We kick them out. And fellas have to come together and understand. Get the roots. Let's get to the root Let's grow the root then. Let's get the root and let's get the root. That's what you're trying to bring across. Let's get the root to show action, produce. We're not producing there. We're talking, but we're not producing. And not you. I don't mean to be directed to you.
No, man. Don't do that, brother.
Yeah.
Just reason,
Okay,
man.
please.
We're good.
All
We're
right.
good.
Yeah.
We're good, man.
So right now we reach a point where we have to decide we want change. One man had 40-something million dollars, and I'm going straight to points. I don't have time because time is short. We have $4-something billion missing. Each poor Dominican right now should be on the street demanding they want $1 million.
Advocacy.
That's advocacy.
Yes.
The reform, the electoral reform. We shouldn't be begging people to come to want to have the rights to vote legally. Is something wrong with our mindset in Dominica, bro?
Advocacy.
Advocacy. So
yes.
We have been doing that already, Zed. And we are doing, as you said,
process. We've been reacting. We haven't.
Let me just get it to you. Let me just get it to you.
Give me a chance, man. Let me touch back on you, man. Give me a chance. Give me a chance. You see, you see what we've been doing in Dominica. We've been doing a reactive sort of thing. We haven't been doing process, brother. We haven't been doing process. We have not even look at how long we are in electoral reform, right? And we have not even done a good job of educating our basic constituents. Our basic people in the country, we have not even done a good enough job of the basic person on the street in breaking down electoral reform to them, the right parameters, the right things that can empower them. Is the process, brother. I understand you on the action, but I'm telling you, the action keeps falling flat because there is no process, there's no preparation of the people. These things are critical to sustain struggle. It's not that emotional reaction that's going to work.
Zed, the time of today is completely different. People are more aware of values. People are more into greed. Their needs are greater than before. You see, before we didn't have that internet and that global village. We had a group of people in Dominica as a family. That was the family. So if it was 70,000 or 80,000, that was the family. But right now we don't have that 70,000 family, because everybody have branched out to the global world, the village now, that their friends are no longer their neighbors. If you get the logic I'm bringing to you. So you find out before when everybody was close to one another, because we didn't have the cell phones, we didn't have the fast way of communicating, we had to communicate with pen and paper. That would take some time. But the neighbors were your best friend because they were the one you know. So you find within that village, that community, negotiation could be a success because everybody were on the same page. But now people don't have time to come in the domino shop and sit down and talk about sort of planting like how the farmers would do. No, everybody go on their smartphone and they're doing stuff. So we have to accept technology and the global world, the global village, the world it is today, and understand how we can have a different approach, because the approach of before, advocating, the civil rights, even the unions, Mr. Alvin, the unions are not the unions of the 70s and the 80s. And not just in Dominica, all about, because things change. People are more advanced. So people have more responsibilities. When a man would drink a cup of cocoa tea, roast a breadfruit, go and sleep with his wife and have a good time, he don't have that again because his wife have to put hair, braid and all kind of stuff. So it's a complete different time. And I'm only bringing that forward for us to understand. We have to create our own approach, our own history within our time on this earth. And our time right now is to kick off the government, because we give them enough of a chance. We just have to come together and we just have to do it. And the only way why we haven't come together is because of resources again. People want because they have needs. That's why they are sticking to this one man taking billions and his friends taking millions when they don't have 1,000.
Yeah, but Sharu, just to add to what Zed was saying, I understand your passion to quote unquote get out the government. That is where most Dominicans are now.
If I say government, I mean whatever party in power. I don't want it to sound
yes.
Government.
We understand.
In position,
the oppressors. The
oppressors. Very good. Thank you.
But just like what Zed was saying, would you care to accept that there should be a process, just like how the 60s and the 70s there were processes, the families coming together, the village coming together, and there could be some sort of movement to get the change that they so desired back then. Zed is saying something similar should be happen even in the age of modern technology that you spoke of earlier, would you accept that at least a process needs to be adopted in moving forward to get that desired result?
That's what I'm saying. Same thing you said. I'm basically saying that they must have a process. They must have planning. They must have, an organization. They must have stuff.
So that is the point Zed is trying to get across.
That's what I'm saying here. But I'm still saying that we have to understand forming organization now is not the organization we could form when everybody was in one area. You understand what I'm trying to say? Everybody have a different mindset now. That's what I'm trying to let Zed understand. So what Zed say logically makes sense. That's the direction we should go. But because of the way things set right now, we cannot have that same 60s and 80s mentality to think we're going to get change. Look at it. Before time, you didn't have the legal system under one-man reign. Can you imagine? I mean, I like to use them. Byron, what's the guy that for the...
Dennis Byron.
Dennis Byron. Can you imagine a man of that magnitude stoop that low? What do you think it is? It's because of money. And I'm using that as an example. So if that man had the fortitude, the integrity, he would not even mingle with all the corruption, all the rumors, and all alleged allegations that's out there about the sitting person in the prime minister's seat. He would say, listen, a man of my magnitude, I cannot mingle in that. But $650,000 make things happen. So if you understand what I'm saying there, it is a complete different approach. In the 70s, 80s, on the Freedom Party, the Labour, we had people that were more family oriented. They were each other keeper in that beautiful island. But everybody spread, and that's the psychology this man used and his government used. They use that, they look at the weekends and they manipulate the system for their own personal gain. So it's we not have to come with a situation where we can transform everything. That's why I said last time about the Constitution. If they go in left, we need to go right to block them where they are. So we have to do what we have to do. But it's true.
Now,
it's
Sharu, just before Alvin Thomas comes in, I am not one advocating for or against Sir Dennis Byron doing anything with our electoral process in Dominica. Matter of fact, to crystallize the point, I was one of the first individuals in Dominica to basically take umbrage with Sir Dennis Byron at the time being nominated or elected or whatever it is by Roosevelt Skerrit to have a say as to where we go with our electoral process. I really took umbrage at that.
You have to.
Having said that, I had some discussions privately, that is, with Sir Dennis Byron, obviously in the company of other persons. And what he said then to us, I had reasonable expectations of Sir Dennis Byron. Listen to me properly, Sharo.
Yeah, I'm listening, bro.
I had reasonable expectations after hearing, quote unquote, his side of the story, to hear him out, and by now certain things should have been in place already. Obviously, he failed my expectation and other person's expectation. And so I understand now why you or other persons, or even myself, would be beating him now with a stick on his back.
But he lost his morale. He lost his integrity, and it will happen in the whole Caribbean.
But to go on a limb and to say or so suggest that it was the $650,000 that basically caught him in a bind, and it was because of his greed. And I want to walk cautiously.
Yeah, I want to take that back. If it sounds that way, I want to apologize about it. But I didn't mean it. I didn't say he. I said $650,000 make people do stuff. But I didn't say he.
Yeah,
okay?
but
so if you get that impression, I apologize to the.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I do agree with you that Sir Dennis Byron, a man of his caliber, should not have done the research. He should have known what character he's dealing with in the name of Roosevelt Skerrit. And I am saying, like you, should not have picked up that job to do anything with our electoral process in Dominica.
Have you one thing before you go to another one of the other?
Alvin is next.
Yeah, one thing. Just look at this, yeah. And I want Dominicans and the listeners to understand it's nothing about the individual as a prime minister, because this guy could take 20%. and give 80% to the country and would be good. Dominica should be paradise as it really is. I shouldn't have brothers crying that they don't have work and calling Sharo what we can do, we down there. And it's just tough back home. And a lot of us up here, hustling and working another man's land. But we have to understand that Dominica should be in a situation right now, especially under this prime minister, especially if all the Petro-Carib, Chavez, all of them see that young man come in front of them with a population of 69 to 70,000 people. And I feel they take him in. Check, you know, that's a small island, we can make it what it is. And I believe they all had good intention, but I think greed with the Petro-Carib, everything, and we keep on forgetting all the deals that went on and all what we should expect, and we're still taking it. You understand? We have to put it as it is. We have a group of fellas, we give a job to do, they play with the system, with the senior attorney, senior counsel is one, Duncan Stowe is one, them lawyers, Alik and all them guys and all of them that accumulate wealth within the period of their reign. They should accumulate wealth if they were rightful for it. Because if I was Dominica and I open a mansion now, everybody want to talk about it. So we need to find out where they got the resources from. And every Dominican should demand, and I'm going to say that they get their fair share of the resources of the country, because one set cannot benefit from it. But anyway, I cannot dive into a little bit. Let's go back to your stuff.
Alvin.
Yes,
I've been listening.
yes, Lofty. Very engaging.
We still have a statement to hear from Mr. Steve Joseph in just a bit.
Yes, yes, very engaging. But let me just say for Sharo, and based on the comments you've made and we have to learn to do. And let me say for Sharo's in the case of the comments that he made. Can you hear me? Are you hearing me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
We're hearing
great.
you, just a little glitch here. And
yeah, I know my system acting up. The weather there is not too good, so maybe that's part of it. But let me just say though that, Sharo, I understand where you're coming from, but we must never and should never dismiss history. And I'm not saying you're doing that or you're suggesting that. But that is what gives us a template to move forward, okay? That's a template. I'm a child of the 70s, and I reference the 73 uprising there at the SMA. And you know what caused that? One teacher, Hilroy Thomas, they dismissed or terminated because he refused to wear the tie. And that sparked a revolution. I mentioned Papa D, one guy working at DBS radio at the time, and he was critical of the government, and the government chose to move him out of the radio station, and it sparked a revolution. And included a 73, how many days strike, state of emergency, the rest is history, okay? The point I'm trying to make is that there was this advocacy there, and all of those persons that I mentioned were young people, you know. They were not people in their 50s or their 60s, you know, at the time, young. Now is how do we use the technology that you referenced a while ago, the smartphone,
how do we use it?
the Twitter, the Zoom, or whatever you want to call it, and create that advocacy. That is where we have to get art. Because, I mean, when you take, I mean, right here in the United States, look what Donald Trump was able to do with Twitter. You may have read and heard about the Carib Spring. One guy used his phone. That's how the Carib Spring revolt started off. Used his smartphone. So I think where we are now is how do we engage, as I said, the young persons? How do we use the technology at our foot? How do we look back and say, well, wait a while, how a young man like E.C. Loblack, no college education, no high school, just an ordinary school, and that man was in Dominica at the age of 28. Patrick John was one of the youngest prime minister at this time, 25 years old, I think, or 20-something, when he became the Secretary General of WAWA and then moved into politics. You know? I mean, you can call so many other names. They were young people at the time. So while I agree with you, we cannot simply just take the 70s and try to apply it today. No, we can't do that. But what I'm saying is that within where we are and what we have at our disposal and the advocacy that Zed spoke about, how do we do that? Because at the end of the day, what will happen is that you will come across with that passionate appeal that you have, which is good. Zed will come with his, I will come with mine. But until such time, we can engage the people on the ground and get them to understand. I mean, I pose a question. What is it that Skerrit is able to convince and influence the young people? He can't give them work, he can't give them nothing, but yet he influenced them to do certain way. I heard on Friday or Thursday it was, one of the commissioners on the commission, Hillary Shillingford, pleading. He's a commissioner. And he
Alvin, your signal keeps going and coming. It is dropping, even worse now.
Can I say something?
I was saying that,
yes.
I was saying just Friday.
Your signal keeps dropping, Alvin. Yeah,
okay,
it keeps dropping bad. So just kind of wind it up and then let's take Zed because it's breaking just a while.
Yes. But Hillary was making the point, commissioner, that Dominicans should take to the street and demand their electoral reform. So how do we make that happen? That's where the advocacy comes.
Advocacy and the process that spoke about.
You see, and that is what and so, Brother Sharo. So now we complete the circle. You see, and I hear the people should be out. The people should be out. But the people do not just go out like that, Sharo. They do not just go out. A few of us, like you, myself, and whatever that in our thing and in our head and our thing, yeah. But the people, the majority of the people, they don't function in that kind of paradigm. They have to be, you have to have a process of coaxing them, of building them. And there are a few things that I want to outline that I think has affected us in Dominica. One of the things, and you made a point earlier when you said the problem is the government. The problem is not the government, Sharu. The problem is the people of Dominica. The problem is the people of Dominica. You see.
So, Zed, if I have a job and I have a manager, and I give the manager a work to do, I have a manager, the manager not doing the work properly, he's the problem.
Let me just finish.
Sharon, just let Zed crystallize that point.
Yeah.
Let me just finish your end of thought. You see, Shamu, a political parliamentary process is not a CEO type of job. It's not that same paradigm. It's not that same paradigm. It's a relationship where people can like you, people can don't like you. It's a whole lot of variances that are different from a CEO type of job. The relationship, the thing in Dominica is we think that democracy is a fact of government. Democracy is not a fact of government. Democracy is a relationship between government and citizens. And Dominican citizens are not playing their part in the relationship of democracy, so there can be no active democracy in Dominica. It has nothing to do with the government. Nothing to do with the government. As long as the people arrive at a posture of advocacy, the government has to respond to the advocacy. It is not the government. No government in power, incumbent, is going to be interested in giving you electoral reform. Even those that will promise it to you while they're outside, you have to hustle them when they go inside. It's not in their interest. So for you to get electoral reform, you have to follow all the historical practices. Trinidad, Antigua, you say in the region, let's stay in the region, Barbados, all of them. The common thing that happened is the legal profession and the people of the country got together and decide electoral reform now. What is the option? There's no other option. So we have to go through the process of advocacy with the people, build them to that point that they can get back their self again. It's a process, and patience has to be in that struggle too, otherwise it fails. It's a process, and especially like you say, Roosevelt Skerrit, handing out people things. It's not easy. But what is missing in Dominica, and that's why I don't respond to the people at the time I'm in foreign, because they're right. Because what we do not have in Dominica, we do not have a few people who are actually trained in advocacy. We do not have people who stick with the cause and build it. And it's a process, it's a way of doing it, It doesn't just happen, And so that is what is happening. Again, like I said, we're in a talk show kind of paradigm in Dominica. As the talk show moves, so we move. The topic moves, so we move. So we don't get to build critical mass around anything. If you cannot build critical mass around anything, you have no struggle. All you have is noise. And that's what's going on in Dominica. All Dominica has is polarized noise. There's no struggle in the real sense of the word, because the people of the struggle are not taking time to organize the struggle.
Absolutely.
Yes, that is real brilliant. Yeah, that's good, sir. That makes
absolutely. No, that is absolutely
correct.
correct.
I will tell you one thing, because you know I will really, you are sorry, Alvin, about that, because I always say, you know, and that's the point you bring across, and it is what it is. Because I always say that's why, you know, Charles Sovereign, when he speak, you know, no matter what, he knows how to get people to listen, you know, and that's why he was taken as president. That's my own opinion. I look at Crazy T. Crazy T is another one I will put a man face. That's why he was taken into us, and think Julius Timofey, I mentioned them in the last program we had.
True.
You know, and said this is that's the point. You know, and it come back to everything, because that's what I was saying. The people have to want the change. The people have to want the change. True. But again, as I said, it's because of the way it is now that compared to before. Because before you find, say, let's use the Windsor Park. You find, because we talk about them young guys like Patrick John and them. At that time, when them guys come out, work and them guys go play ball and they sit down, they can advocate, they could talk among themselves and know what they want. You see, but we don't have it that way right now. That is really the kind of point I was trying to bring across. Because of it's so much of a global village now, these guys don't have that kind of family bond. That is, 70,000 people in Dominica 70 years ago or whatever was one family. You understand? So it was easier, good. Message was easier, pass and acknowledge and then come to a plan. But what you say is basically the same. So yeah, you're right on cue.
All right, gentlemen, we may be leaving it or not, but it is already 20 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock. So we have gone past 10 minutes past an hour conversation already. That time we usually take a little break at this time. So we're going to do just that. But before we take that break, I want to play a statement as we veer off into the next segment of the program, whereby we'll be zeroing on the stagnated economy of ours in Dominica. We started with the workers' rights. We in Dominica and the region celebrating Workers' Day tomorrow. Let me play a statement now from Brother Steve Joseph. He's the president of the Dominica Public Service Union in Dominica, as to just what he thinks some of the things that we should be doing in terms of, you know, the unity or the unifying of our working class in Dominica. Let's take a listen in on his statement. Take a break, and then after the break, we're going to deliberate on it for 2 before we veer off into the next aspect of the conversation. Take a listen to Brother Steve Joseph on his comments sometime back then.
We feel we can do better if we are more united. If there's trade union consolidation, if there's trade union unity, trade union solidarity, and unfortunately, everybody may not be on the same page of where we should go with this in terms of the registered trade unions in Dominica. But as you echoed earlier, we believe that those unions that have already expressed interest, at least the 4 that we know, it's just a matter of time for us to sit down and begin to agree on the establishment of a trade union center, or what we call the trade union congress. And there are benefits to that. We can put unified positions to the government, all right? Mm-hmm. And even within the public sector unions, we can agree on how we approach salary negotiation.
All right, let me just let you guys hear that statement one more time. We're going to take a break and we'll deliberate on his comments thereafter. One more time, Brother Joseph.
But we feel we can do better if we are more united. If there's trade union consolidation, if there's trade union unity, trade union solidarity, and unfortunately, everybody may not be on the same page of where we should go with this in terms of the registered trade unions in Dominica. But as you echoed earlier,
we believe that those unions that have already expressed interest, at least the 4 that we know, it's just a matter of time for us to sit down and begin to agree on the establishment of a trade union center, or what we call the trade union congress. And there are benefits to that. We can put unified positions to the government, all right? Mm-hmm. And even within the public sector unions, we can agree on how we approach salary negotiation.
So even when the road get rocky, me say me never give up. I said there ain't no giving in. And when the going get tough, I said the tough get going. My people don't give up. I said there ain't no giving in. No, Rastafari guide like a knife from the beginning. Whoa, whoa, whoa. A lot of youths in life say them can't take the pressure no more. Whoa, whoa, whoa. But from your trust in the most high life, I go get better, I'm sure. The youth juggle on the roadside, Babylon say if you take up your bag and go. Boy, but you still...
This number you're listening is from the Brother Chronics, telling the young people in particular, don't give up the fight, huh?
Giving in. And when the going get tough, I said the tough gets going. One juggle your fruits. Don't give up. I said there ain't no giving.
Don't give up, Dominicans. Don't give up on our struggle at this time.
Your knife from the beginning.
Brother Arundel Thomas is listening on YouTube. Good evening to you, my bro.
I get paid. The government need for purge and process. Oh, police now get paid, so them find it hard to serve and protect. And all we get from the government is highlight bits and robust taxes. And them still a pressure the youth to run it hard on the road with them robot taxes. But there ain't no giving in. Why run a taxi you? Hey, I said the tough gets going. Ba, 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 yeah. Nah, give up.
Don't give up, Dominicans. Don't give up. We are right there.
Rastafari guide, I and I. Whoa, whoa. I said my people, we've been facing struggles for so long. Job people, please me, I beg you. Please, could you hold on? I know the system have you down and you feel pressed down like 50 feet. I thought the back of you, the victory sweet. Me say me still not give up, me just kiss me teeth, not give up. I said there ain't no giving in.
That is what this program is geared at, telling you, encouraging you folks not to give up, huh?
Jordan, believe me, not give up. I said there ain't no.
No matter how tough it may be, how tough it may look out there, please, Dominicans, don't give up. All right, that's Brother Chronics. Let's get back to the live panel here. A number of folks here on the live feed. Good evening to you all. We have Brother Zed Lloyd in the house, Brother Jefferson Winston in the house as well, and Mr. Alvin Thomas. We are discussing the issue of a very stagnated economy as a result of unfair elections in Dominica. But before that, we touch on Labor Day. Some of you call it May Day. We'll be celebrating that in Dominica and the Eastern Caribbean. Gentlemen, before we took the break, we heard a statement or some comments from Mr. Steve Joseph, president of the DPSU in Dominica. Your comments, guys.
Yeah, let me jump in. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. Let me just say though that yeah, I agree there's strength in numbers. That's a given. That has always been a given in the trade union narrative or whatever we want to call it. But again, let me just go back because it's unfortunately I have to go back to the history. In 1961, the 16th of December, 1971, that is, you had a serious uprising at the Parliament building. Some of you might be too young to remember that, but if you go and research it, you'll find out. Zaboka took the chair of the Speaker of the Parliament then, and he had the mace. That was at the old courthouse on High Street. That was a big uprising, the 16th of December, 1971. And all the unions rallied. In 1973, I referenced Papa D. You didn't have a trade union congress, but all the unions rallied. the advocacy was there and they rallied. You didn't have a trade union congress up till now, but they rallied. And the private sector rallied. The law fraternity rallied. So the question remains, what can we do to get that same kind of, granted, I'm in full agreement with the Congress. I have no objection to that. But the point I'm trying to make, at the time, you had individual without the S and individuals with an S who was brave enough to stand up to injustice and the democracy and fight for it. Again, I'll go back to the 28-year-old man, E.C. LeBlanc. He might have been a Lone Ranger. Shannon Alfrey was a white woman. Just imagine an aristocrat, sort of quote-unquote white woman with a neck bodlame, which is what E.C. LeBlanc will refer to, the neck bodlame. And the two came together to fight injustice. Look at the narrative. A white woman, aristocrat, and a Tigaso bodlame, and they were able to do it. So herein lies the advocacy, and I agree. What you call it? Scarcity is not the problem per se, quote unquote, or we should not focus too much on him, because what I see happening now lately in the last couple talk shows I've been listening to, he drives the narrative. He talk about X at this press conference, they jump on it, they discuss that. He talk about child support, they jump on it, who having baby with woman and not taking the child, they jump on that. He talk about this, they jump on that. And we're not creating our own narrative. Exactly. So I think, and as I said, sometimes I can't come on this program and how should I say it? Give out a strategy. You see what I'm saying? There's another forum for that. But there is a way of doing this and a strategy. You have to, you know, it's a war, and you have to go in that war room and design how you're going to fight the war. And I think that's where we have to go. So I agree with Mr. Joseph and his call for the unity and the solidarity, because as I said, there's strength in numbers. But again, if we look, when existed before, we didn't have a thing, but people rallied together. When Zabuka say move, everybody move. When Charles Sabre say move, everybody move. When Israel Black say move, everybody move. Exactly. And that is what it was. So
different mindset.
Yes. So we need, and there are people right now, Sharon, Dominica, that can do that and say move. I hear Mervyn Jean-Baptiste calling for it. He's one of those persons that can say, let's move, and let's move with him. Let's move. So that is what we have to work on. That's my take on it. I'm lost.
Can I say something?
Yes, go right on, my brother.
The thing about it, and I mentioned it, I'm gonna repeat it again. Yes, Mervyn calling for, because we want a better country, we want a better Dominica, we want a better government. And I will always say that it's true, we might want to say it's different to give them than giving a man a job into, which is factual and accepted. But we have to understand where the people give him a job to do. And the people have to analyze where they are now and in the next 10 years where they're gonna be, because it's not easy back home. I know that, you understand? And we have to know that because of the times, I go again, people have to strategize and, you know, as you say, Mr. Thomas, and know how to approach it. As you say, Mr. Zed Lloyd, about, you know, advocating and all of that. But I know we have been advocating for years. Everybody in Dominica know that what the Prime Minister is doing is not in the best interest of Dominica. We have to understand that. I know nothing against the man as an individual. If that is his goal and that's how we see it, well, he's doing a bad job for the people. And I don't know why the natives, the country have to accept it. You know that foreigners are going to come back. There's no medication and the hospital needs a lot. But you can give one foreigner $650,000 to do something that you could get any citizen to do. You know, and I don't know why our mindset, we settle it so much for less when we can demand more. Now I want the people to understand, we gave him a job. They got a job, they're getting a salary because of you. So you have to demand what you have to get in return. And if the values are not worth the price you pay to have him in office or any one of them, you all have to get them out. No matter who. It could be Lennox Clinton, it could be Zed Lloyd, it could be Thomas, it could be anybody. If they cannot produce, you have to look at your time on earth in that beautiful island and see where you stand while others are getting very rich. I understand about all the legal stuff and all the history of advocating of before and all that stuff. It's true. It's a platform. But if you a people, and I'm speaking to the Dominican people, if you a people do not understand your values and you have to make your own history because you want better, don't make a few get so rich over you and they bringing you down.
Let me just chime in there, Sharu, to sort of paint a real picture that is happening on the ground as we speak. And basically that scenario, it has taken root. Hence the discussions we're having over and over again. And I agree with you 100%. You need to cut a tree, from its root, from its core, in order that it does not, continue to bear bad fruits or rotten fruits. But Zed touched on a point earlier about the process, and I think we need to take that on board, analyze it properly as we continue to build a momentum in order to get rid of that regime. Sharu, let me tell you something. The Roosevelt-Skerrit administration, brother, have systematically dismantled a lot of organizations in Dominica, brother. They have already dismantled a lot of individuals as well in Dominica.
That is true.
Now, take that as a fact. It is a fact. Now, I am hearing what you're saying or what you're requesting that Dominicans do versus the present predicament in which we are. Sharo, Roosevelt-Skerrit administration have systematically disemboweled people by basically giving them trinkets, giving them things, giving them, with his whole objective of remaining on the political throne, as it were. Sharo, do you think, and we just having a rapport now, do you think that these people, and I'm not going to classify them as labor rights or any rights now, they are Dominicans. Exactly. Do you think, Sharo, these people who have gotten a quote unquote, we know it's not free, but in their mind it is free. They're paying for shite. Do you think that these people who have gotten a house, an apartment, is going to heed to your admonition, as you alluding to now, and get out on the streets and say, you know something, Roosevelt, you gave me a house, you gave me a roof over my head, but your leadership is poor? Do you think that these young persons, he has systematically, through his cronies, placed in positions under the NEP program, they are going to say or do anything in that regard, Sharo? Do you think, Sharo, that these persons, quote unquote, we'll get back to you in a while. Just keep that line. Do you think, Sharo, that these quote unquote influential people that this gentleman has placed in certain pivotal positions to bring back news to him as to what is happening on this board, what is happening in that institution, what is going on in that group, what is going on in whatever aspect it is, going to decide and say, okay, you gave me that position, to be a spy for you, but you are not doing good. And so I am going to speak up publicly against you. And so it is that and more, Sharo. It is the process now that Zed spoke about, which I would really like us to pay a little more attention to. It is the education that we have been doing. It is the toiling on the ground that we must continue to do, because nothing lasts forever. I know we have been at that for a little while, but in any well-trenched dictatorship like Roosevelt's, brother, Robert Mugabe stayed in Zimbabwe as leader in a dictatorship style for 37 years. We are 23, 20 thereabout, 17 more years, and we're right there. You understand? And it is not far-fetched. This guy said he wants to remain in power till 2050. And we are seeing all that he's doing to stay and remain right there. And so I am saying, Sharo, I hear you. I understand your pain. For me alone, Roosevelt Skerrit and his regime would be a goner. But we have to understand, after 20 years of anything, it is very difficult to uproot a system that Roosevelt has created. And so that is where I really wanted to sort of bring back the conversation to the reality on the ground. When you speak to people, Sharo, on the ground, they're telling you, Lofty boy, things are hard. Lofty, my child cannot go to school properly. I cannot feed my, but once you hear the but, you know what is coming. But I have a little job in the gardens. But I have a little job cleaning the ministry. But I have a little job cleaning that office. But I got a free apartment. But, and so you now listening to that plight have to know how you're going to start the process of educating that person so that that person can understand these little trinkets. Country means more. And that is where we are.
Let me just tell you one thing to that. I spoke to you the last time on the program, and I said, people in position, we need to call them out for who they are and ask them questions. We have to bypass Skerrit. You see, that's the thing we do. We do like Skerrit responsible because of his whole psychology plan, or what if that's the right word I should use, or his whole intention that everything is he talks about everything that happening on the island, which is wrong. Okay, I told you on your program that Duncan Stowe, which needs people, because there's a lot of people in opposition, you understand, and there are a lot of opposition that is not scared. Okay, we just as Zed said a lot of stuff which makes sense, but all I wanted to do is bring it into the present. You understand? We need to call out like Duncan Stowe. 5-10 people on Duncan Stowe step every morning telling him we need answers about electoral reform. We need to call out the Lawrences, the Attorney General, the senior attorney that just call people doc or whatever. We need to call them. We need. That's the approach, you know. We need to go to them, not Skerrit. Let them go to Skerrit.
So again, you're agreeing there should be a process in getting it done.
It's always, I never disagree about the process. Okay. You must have a process, you must plan. Yeah. I just don't want us to have a process thing that we're going to have to go back all the way 20, 30 years when we should think about the process
that's
right
fine.
now. I never said this. You must have a process. I'm not against anything these two gentlemen said. It makes sense. But I just want us to understand we talking too much and we're not doing action. We need action. We need to come back, you know.
Talk cooperative action.
Yes. What's wrong? We get a few t-shirts. All of us out there print t-shirts. We're talking electoral reform. Put Duncan like our crazy tea, put the late Prime Minister face on a donkey. We don't have to go that low, but put his face on some shirts asking, we need answers. Go to his door, go to in front of his business place. Let him see that there are people and he have to go and say, you know what, Master, they at me right now. They at me, I need answers for the people. That's what we have to do.
Collective action. All right, I'm sure.
There's many other reasons you all can come up with, but we have to do something. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Collective action. Yes, Zed. And we're going to take some comments in just a minute. Yes.
Lofty, I want to make a comment after Zed.
Lofty, that posture of the unions, Lofty. it's so interesting, you know. It exemplifies exactly the problem. So here you have union leaders, right? Like Brother Lita and whatever. So I understand the binding of the union and its executive. I understand dynamics, you know what I mean? I was around there for a little bit, you know, trying to learn myself while teaching. But here's the problem. These guys, they make their decisions based on the union. But if you are leading a union and the posture of the union is contrary to your principle, you as an individual, one of the most powerful statements you can make is to individually position yourself that you're not representing your union on this issue, but you as leadership of this union, you are dissatisfied with the posture of your followers in the union, you're dissatisfied with your people that you represent, and that is why you are going to take a stand. Later, and Joseph and these guys have never shown that kind of posture, that kind of backbone. You see, you know why I became an advocate, Lofty? Brother Jermaine, me sitting down in my class at the end there with all the tension we go through in SMA, challenging him. Is he walking out that door with Rupert Sorrento and Lance that tell me, boy, them things there is what you have to do. You have to do right. The action, you know, leaving at 11 o'clock in hot sun and walking out, watching them walking through that black gate in SMA is what really took me on this kind of thing. So they don't understand these individual postures. It is their unexpectedness that can be very instrumental in converting those same people that appear unconvertible. You understand? So it's those abject actions that have to take place. Those things we don't expect, you know. So later on, them fellas, all of them is the problem because they don't even understand the power that rests in their hands as union leadership, irrelevant of the union itself, just by virtue of the posture of the post that they hold. They don't understand these things. Charles Savre understood this very clearly, very clearly. You see? So that posture there, yeah, is cool, it's all kind of talk, but Joseph and Mr. Later need to understand their posture as citizens, independent of their posture as executives of that union on these issues. It is when individuals start understanding that posture that kind of advocacy will gain. You understand? So their position for me, right, is a joke. It's a joke. There's no heart in that union. No heart. Only talk.
All right, Lofty, can I come in?
Different time.
Lofty, can I come in?
Yes, brother, go right on.
Yes. I can hear the passion in Zed's voice. I'm sure Brother Steve and Brother Later will respond.
Yeah, man. I want them to respond.
Appropriately. But let me say, in light of Sharo and the scenario you painted earlier, again, guys, old school. So that doesn't mean I stay there. I'm still very relevant today because, you know, my grandson and I, we get involved in TikTok and YouTube and all those good stuff. I'm a social fanatic myself, media fanatic. But let me say to you, Lofty, it depends how you see it.
Alvin, would we just interject a little bit just to take a call? Somebody have been trying.
Okay, go ahead. Sure, go ahead.
Caller, good evening. Welcome to Civic Vibes. You're on.
I listened to the passion which Zed Lloyd is beating on the union executive. But I am of the opinion that the executive is not the problem. For instance, if the workers feel intimidated, no matter what the executive says, the workers will look after what they believe to be their own interest. It is like the union, their policy, their posture will be different from the union. They'll be them selling their plate of food, their pot for a plate of food today. And that is the system in Dominica, where they sell their pot for a plate of food today, and tomorrow they are at a loss, they don't have it. Okay, there was an incident in which a worker at the labor department found herself in some hot water. And rather than turning to the PSU, which was the union to represent her, she went to a private union. And it was simply because, in my opinion, she had not shown her allegiance to the union. Her allegiance was more to the government. And now the time come when the government was against her. She turned to a private union, okay? Not the representation that she deserved. She felt the guilt of not having been loyal to her union and having to go to them at this point in time. So she went somewhere else. So while I think we need we definitely need the T-Union, Trade Union Congress, but the problem is the people. Unless, no matter how much the unions advocate, if the people do not put their interests in front, if they worship the politicians over their own interests, the unions are not getting anywhere with them. Okay? That's my position.
All right, caller, thank you for your position and your point here. Thank you very much indeed. Much appreciated. Yes, Alvin.
I just wanted to say very briefly, though, in light of the scenario you printed, and again, you know, while I don't stay in the past, you got to move on to the future. Let's look at the scenario of Patrick John. When Patrick John took over the Labour Party from E.O. LeBlanc, very popular young man at the time, very popular. And I mean, he had all these, you know, some questionable thing going on because prior to that, as I said, we had 73. And then we had a 77 some situation all brought about by the union. But then in 1978, Patrick John took the country into independence. Okay. And prior to that, during that period leading up to independence, one might say, the Labour Party installed Bath Estate Housing Scheme, DBS Radio, National Bank, Aid Bank, started the Kingsville Airport. A number of things that you could say that led to the development, if one might want to say, of the people. But guess what? In 1978, in November, when we get independence, 5 months later, in May of 79, he was taken out of office. Popular as he was in November when he gave us independence. But guess what? Like Zed was saying, there was an advocacy and a strategy. That's what made it happen. The Egbert Germain, the Charles Savre, the Louis Binois, the Dawu, the trade, the private sector, the farmers. So you got to have a strategy. It doesn't just happen like that.
Thomas, let me ask you. I agree with your point in terms of a strategy, and we are all in agreement with that. But I want to ask you that very pointed question, Alvin Thomas. In your day, when you spoke of that 5 months after John was removed from office, did John and his regime, quote unquote, laborized these houses, laborized these opportunities like we see today, brother?
They may not have liberalized it as it happens today. Mm-hmm. The Labour Party was very, very strong and powerful. I mean, you had persons like, I mean, the Karams protecting him. You had, you know, some names like the Julian Davids, and I mean, Labour Party, you know, was a household name in Dominica. Popular. They had their, you know, they had their support. May not have liberalized it the way that it is now. But the point I'm trying to make is that here you had a prime minister then that was quote unquote popular and had done so much. But due to the fact that on the resistance side, you had persons there who had a certain level of advocacy and, one might say, strategy, was able to do what they did and got the government at the time to come out because of whatever ills of society they found at the time. You wanted to pass this bill and they were upset about it and whatever. The rest is history. So the point I'm trying to make is that until you have the people with a strategy and someone who comes across as in a sort of a leadership role to say, well, hey, this is what we're going to do, it can happen. And while I agree with you, there may be exceptions like the Mojave that you mentioned. I was in office for 30-something years. I on this same program, I made the point not too long ago that in Grenada, Michel at the opposition party, the party who is now in office, They lost 2 elections back to back. So for 10 years, not even one seat they were able to win, not one. Mitchell won all 15 seats. And then he won all 15 seats again, back to back. And then the party was able to come with the support of not just the party, but persons in the wider community, I would imagine, private sector, trade unions, everything, and felt, well, hey, we've had enough of Mitchell and his nonsense. We're going to throw him out.
Alvin, yeah, go ahead.
And they won in a very strong way.
Alvin,
you win Antigua, and you see what happened. I mean, it's true that the guy didn't lose, but so I'm saying all of this to say that if you have the advocacy along with the right strategy, we can overcome some of the hurdles that we feel we are facing.
Yeah, but just before Zed comes in and then we go to the live to take some comments. Alvin, do you have an idea, my brother? You spoke of the Deacon Mitchell winning, the elections over Keith Mitchell. Do you know the sort of concession, the sort of coming together, the sort of meetings, the sort of, how I would say, political MOU, if it have a phrase like that, that had to be agreed upon, that we are not seeing in Dominica today, not as yet, to have removed Keith Mitchell from office, brother?
Yeah.
Do you know the kind of discussions that went on back then?
And that's what I'm saying. We can begin that in Dominica.
The old guards, for example, of the Keith Mitchell administration, some of them privately came together and say, we have had enough. Do you see that happening today in that present DLP regime?
It's possible. It's possible, Lofty. It's possible. I mean, it's possible. I mean,
I am very optimistic, but I haven't seen that as yet.
Yeah, and that is one thing again. Yeah, one thing I think in terms of our narrative we have to do. Let's face it, those who are already converts, put it this way, are converts. We have to speak to the persons who support, like I think Cheryl rightly said, not necessarily to, yes, in some cases you might have to use harsh approach towards them, but you have to, as they say, evangelize and convert the laborites, then, if you want to call it that way, in that sense. You have to appeal to them and say, hey, guy, Zed, I know you support Roosevelt Scary Prime Minister, but are you in a better position now than you were 5 years ago, Zed? And get to change Zed's heart and mind. You go to Alvin. Alvin, you support the party. Do you feel you're in a better position? As against if you try to attack Zed, and like you say, that is where Zed gets in a monthly stipend or what have you, and he doesn't see another option. Obviously, Zed is going to be on the defensive. Zed is going to protect what he's getting, which is a little $5 or $20 that he's getting, that he's not sure he might be able to get it elsewhere. But if you can come across Zed, and that is where the education and all the work on the ground has to take place. If you can get Zed to understand Zed, you will be in a better position from where you are to change course. Then the strategy and the work that has to be done on the ground.
I want to say something.
Zed, Sharu, just give Zed a little click there, and then we'll come in. Yes.
Lofty. I like where Alvin took it. You see, let's use the example of CCM, Lofty. You were there in the early part, let's use the example of CCM. You see, every solution, right? That's why analysis is important. That's why history is important. And that's why future is important. When you look at the analysis of Dominica, and you're talking about, well, this one get that one, this one get that one. The whole picture, if we paint it properly, eloquently, and write out what it is, here is what it is telling us, You cannot go on an anti-political tirade to make conversion to this struggle. The approach we have been taking is wrong. The level of polarization politically in Dominica, you have to take stock of it in organizing a struggle in a way that can succeed. And if you take stock of it, it tells you that we need a much more friendly partitioning towards creating this revolution. Understand? So we cannot anchor the thing in the politics too much longer. We cannot stay on the anti-scary daily. It's not creating no conversion. We have to go to the. That's why I tell people, we have to look at the things from a community level, the things that matter to the people in the community. Make differences in their life in the community. That is what changes minds in scary kind of environment. That's why politics cannot be just a talking conversation no more, because you have to work within the environment that is there. So it must involve community involvement. The politicians must get involved in the lives of the people. It's not that you want to be personal as a politician, but the environment that you have to work in, it dictates how you have to work. You see? So we have to shift the conversation from this daily nonsense on Q about scary. We have to shift it. Might have to start making time for more progressive conversation on the goddamn radio too. You understand? We have to shift those things. We have to shift those things. We have to create the dialogue that can reinforce people's minds. When they finish, they're not just thinking of what, well, no, they think, oh, Mokonet Kesho Jodi. I know something about that law. The people that can answer to Clarence Christian, answer to those teats and those people and their corruption. So we need a different approach in moving forward, because the last 20 years, this attack on labor has not benefited the struggle. It doesn't work. You understand? And we need labor rights to create any change in Dominica. We need labor rights. We need labor rights. And so those are the kinds of questions that we need to be addressing. And the same thing, Sharu, that's why I tell you we need process, because it's in process we will look at what doesn't work and move to what works and start the implementation. Because if we do not cancel this anti-labor rhetoric, this struggle doesn't win.
Sure.
It will not win.
I want to say something. Can I comment?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, sure. Correct.
Okay. You see, that's the same thing. I think we're all on the same track, and we just, coming around the same point every time. I said it already. I said we have to stop thinking that scary have the answers for everything that is going on, and we need to hold people responsible, that are in positions and deal with their portfolio, if that's the term I should use. Okay, I tell you about Duncan Stowe and the others. These are the only way I have realized that we can maybe get answers. Not maybe, we will get, is by we going directly to these guys. Not no violent, not nothing about that, but seeing them and telling them that we need answers because they have a job to do and they are in the positions, which are, or they put it wrong pegs in the wrong hole or something like that. But we have to demand answers from these people. We have to bypass Skerrit right now because we're making Skerrit feel he's Lord and Savior. Okay? Now, two, we have to understand the politics of today is not the politics of the 70s, the 60s, and the 80s. We are in a complete different time. Whereas, again, I accept that history is a platform for our democracy, for us to lead and maybe take some, pointers from. But we have to create our own history. And there's no way that something is not working, that we should accept it. Okay? And I don't care if you're a labor right, I don't care if you're workers or freedom right or whatever party you support. You cannot have a farm and you get a man to run your farm and he's taking all of your plantation, all what you harvest, and he's giving you 2 little grains of plantain and in a plastic bag and 2 things of dashing, and you're seeing how much going on and you just accepting it. Something have to be mentally wrong for people to accept it. And I just want the people to understand they have to analyze their situation and see where they are and look at where those they gave a job to do, how far they are moving on, and know that they have to get change. That's all. People have to get their mindset that they need to come together and get answers. And unless we don't do that, I don't know where you're going.
Again, my brother, thank you for your points. Thank you for your point. And I'm in no way, shape, or form, not wanting to, have your points go through. No, you said it eloquently, and I accept that. But I am a realist, Sharu, and I am on the ground, and I can speak to what some of the situation that is happening on the ground in real time. Some of it may even be happening now as we speak.
It happened in Lofty.
For example, Sharo, let me show you how low it is, where it is in Dominica. And we're talking about, we now talking about the very existence, the very survival of certain persons in Dominica. This very corrupt regime, because of your stance, they will either deny you or accept you. These people systematically goes about, and don't underestimate that word, Sharo, systematically, because that is what they have been doing. They have been perfecting the art of rigging elections. So too, they have perfected the art of systematically dismasculating or disemboweling people and institutions in Dominica. So when, for example, these Labour Party cronies would come, for example, in Cochrane, and they would come with food, things you have to take in, some stay and the rest go out. And they would come with a system with certain names on a paper and decide who eat and who doesn't eat. What do you call that kind of system, Sharo?
Can I answer you?
Hold on. And so some persons are so fearful now of their very existence. We are not talking about the luxuries of life now. Flour, sugar, milk, eggs, bread, cheese, basic commodities, my brother. And because of some of these people' political affiliation, they will be denied food, F-O-O-D, food.
That's why.
And that is what is the reality on the ground. And I cannot not emphasize it as it is.
It is the reality.
Brother, yes, we have to do whatever, go to these guys, you know, but there have to be now, Sharo, a system whereby we meet these people where they are, even if we have to come up with innovative ideas to feed these people as well. You cannot come and talk about governance to a hungry man.
Well, you see, the hungry man.
Hold on 1 minute. So when we are preaching, when we are evangelizing, as Alvin said before, we have to come up with strategies as well to help elevate the plight of these people. And that is where sometimes Roosevelt and his regime, they are using our money to keep these people where they are in poverty. And that is a challenge we have. You think people don't know the country's not been run properly? You think the people who are receiving these little yellow bags of food don't know that? But my brother, if they decide to take a stand, they will be wondering, where is my next meal coming from? Are the people who I am standing with prepared to help me along the way? Are the people who I am chanting down Dominica for, are they ready to lend support to me? And that is where, you know, we have to rethink that thing. So it's not just bringing the horse to the water, but even when we get the horse to the water, we have to basically have some situation there to say, you know something, that is it, and that is how we can help. But until and unless we can do that, come up with some very innovative ideas to help these people, to meet them where they are, we will be in that perpetual mode of that anti-Roosevelt and anti-this and anti-that. And my brother, it is sad to say, sometimes you really have to bend over backwards to get people or to meet people where they are. You're telling people to come down to Tong or wherever for a protest, my brother. You know, these people don't have money to buy $2 bread for their children. Are you going to tell them to take that dollar that they have for, come down to do what? And that is the reality. So in all the talk we are talking, the talk is good. But we in the opposition, and that's why I love people like Rosie. Rosie didn't just talk. Rosie came up with ideas, even whilst in opposition, to help a people so that at least the people saw leadership in action. And that is what is missing.
Real talk.
Can I say something now?
Sure. We're down to the wire. We'll cut it in the wire.
Loftus. That's why I said we have to hold people responsible for whatever position they have. We have to bypass PM for the time. Let me tell you something. There's no way there should be, I using your example, 20 people getting groceries from the government and 10 do not get, and there's no way the 10 cannot demand that they get. You see, that's the kind of approach I want us to understand. You're not getting, you know some getting, you know by right you need to get, come out and demand you get too. But when you stay back and you're quiet, you're just not gonna get. You're already not getting. That's what I'm trying to tell you all, the approach is. We need to demand answers, bro. And even if out of 50 is 10 that against it, that 10 have to understand they come out and they demand their rightful share. That's why before I said to you, in all the millions that go, every Dominican should get $1 million. That's why I told you that in the starting of that. And all these people that are hungry and cannot feed need to understand, they need to come out and demand, I want to. Let him give everybody, but when you accepting it, I just tell you about the farmland. You get a little bag of food and all the rest going out. That's what happened to Dominica. So yes, there's people in position to cause all of that to happen. The same ones that causing it to happen, you go to them, call them out by their names. That was what the lawyer said. Call them out, call them traitors, say I'm hungry, I want mine too. If you understand what I'm trying to bring across. Because we just keep on talking and have all kind of brilliant ideas and saying we're strategizing and we're doing that. We just need to be bold and take a bold step and demand our resources and let's do what we have to do. And that is what happened in the 70s. They were a smaller group of people, everybody always together, and then they could demand and strategize and get it done.
Strategy. Thank you. Thank you, my brother. Well said. Well said indeed. Point well taken. Said, let us start to sort of, bring the conversation now to a wrap because it's already 10 minutes past 8. I realize we started 10 minutes past 6, so we already there. But, we can take around 10, 15 to sort of,
Yeah, well, I give thanks. It's always, yeah, it's always, I myself, it is, boy, I don't know, sometimes I just want to just go on the ground, but Dominica, man, Dominica is like, boy, Dominica. But it's we don't have to do it, Lofty, we don't have to do it. So we just have to stay on the mission. But we definitely need some more foot soldiers on the ground. We need people who understand strategy, who understand what struggle is and how you build struggle, how you build, resilience. It's technique. Martin Luther and them used to have strategy meetings. I'm Lofty. Things didn't just used to happen. It's a lot of psychology that was being analyzed and assessed and yeah, it doesn't just happen. It doesn't just happen. And so in the political divisiveness we have, these strategies cannot happen because people are not meeting to come together, They're not meeting to come together. And I don't know, man. The solution is civic. If it doesn't work, the only alternative is going to be violence. And I'm worried that it reaches that. But there is still civic opportunity. But we have to change strategies, Lofty. We have to change strategies. We have to start welcoming people to our platforms. We have to start having, interrelational programs on the radio. And even at Civic Bars, we have to start broadening who we invite and try to get a brother. I know you try sometimes, but we have to keep trying. We have to invite these people into our space. We have to begin the dialogue. The advantage is to them if we do not dialogue. So since it is our disadvantage, we have to work on it, making it our advantage. So we must dialogue with them because we are the disadvantage. You understand? So on the process online, even though we have to stop pushing the labor rights away, man. As hard as it is, I know that sometimes they really talk some garbage, But we have to practice some temperament and something. We have to try making these people our brothers and sisters. We have to try. That has to be part of the process of moving forward. And I hope we can do that, on the radio and otherwise and engage. And like I says, we have, man, Q95, man. Yeah, the game have to be stepped up, brethren. The game have to be stepped up. It's that simple.
True. And
Yeah,
thank you, Zed. And just to clear the name of Civic Vibes as it was, Civic Vibes, Zed, is a non-profit organization. We are open to all and sundry. Our mantra is respect. Once you come, then you defame anybody, you libeling anybody, then anybody is free and welcome to. And the conversations are not necessarily in a partisan nature. Obviously, the politics will kick in because that is what runs our lives. But we are wide open. We have an open door policy, as you know. All right. Brother Alvin, we have some comments on the board. Would you like to share with me in going through some of these comments before we close, please?
Yes, certainly. The last one I just pulled up there says the problem is we need financing. That's it. And you had that coming from Chris Martin, and then you have Marshall Lawrence saying serious reality indeed. That's why alternative governance is a rich fruit of democracy. And then you had Chandra Senval say that's right, because those who are not getting are more than the few who get. So yes, we definitely.
Zed your mic. Sorry, Alvin. Zed your mic. Can you turn off your mic? We're getting unnecessary feedback. Yes. Okay. Thanks, brother. Yes.
I was saying Chandra Senval says that's right, because those who are not getting are more than the few who get. So yes, we could definitely overpower them. And then we had we
also have Altherian is saying town hall meetings should not be left for election reasons or seasons rather. It should be ongoing. Yes.
That's right.
Continue.
Yeah. And then we had October's very own. It's going to be a long struggle. If you have cow and goats, chew something, chewy, you poo. I didn't quite get that one.
You give you a piece of patwa there.
Yes, you give me one there. Yes, you give me one there.
David Joseph writes, the real problem is the people in caps.
Yes.
Something no if and no buts about it.
Yes. But let me just make a let me see. And we have for Ferdinand Lawrence. Idea thinking about
Ferdinand
Lawrence. Idea thinking about contributing financially, and meetings are not even being kept. David Joseph, real problem is the people. No if and no but.
Let me just respond to this Lawrence brother here, Ferdinand. Ferdinand,
go ahead.
There are meetings being kept. I can tell you that. And so if you are interested, if you are serious about making a financial contributions, a number of persons on the ground in Dominica, please feel free to reach out to any one of us on the ground where these meetings are being kept. So don't use what you heard maybe Zed said or somebody said as a cop out, not for you to play your part in the struggle. All right. Yes, Brother Alvin.
Yeah, but I wanted to say though, in response to that and one of the other comments, and I think Zed kind of alluded to it. In all of those struggles that we see, whether it's in Dominica, in the region, or the US or wherever, leaders emerge. Individual. And sometimes what happens is that where this individual, and it has sometimes go beyond, you have to see this thing beyond you, and where injustice is held. We can go on and talk Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther, you name it, all of those persons. Even if we go locally and we see the Charles Savrez, the Sabocas, leaders emerge out of nowhere. The EC Lobla. And I think that too is part of where we have to go. Sometimes I get a sense that folks are saying, well, in order for me or us to do something, we need to see 10,000 people come out or 2,000 people come out. But the struggle sometimes doesn't have to start with 10,000 or 2,000. You have to start where you are. That's what it says, the Child Pro. Start where you are. It's 10, and we'll build on the 10, and we'll build on the 20. I mean, when again, if I may use, the CSA had a 47-day strike. Why did you think they stayed on for 47? Because day one, they didn't have success. And day two, and day three, and day four. And it took 47 days to build up that success and to be able to make the demand. 47 days they held out there. So sometimes we as individuals have to come out, and that's where the leadership emerges. And then you have what is called, one might say, the domino effect of it. Okay. But I don't think all is lost. Having said that, I don't think all is lost. I am very hopeful that change is going to come. It is painful what we're seeing and where we are today. Yes, it is painful for those of us who knew what obtained before, and even those of us who may not know all of what obtained before, like the young guy like Shero, which is a young kid, you know, younger than
you think I'm young.
or Zed, you know, like they're not like the old man like me there. But I believe hope is there and change is possible. It is painful, but it's going to come. And I think at some point in time, Lofty, from what you have described, when a person's back is against the wall, there's nowhere else to turn but to advance forward. And I think that's where we're going to get. Is it sometimes going to lead to a revolution? Yes. Sometimes that's what is needed, a revolution, to a rebellion, to change the trajectory of things. I mean, Dominica is reaching that. Bala had a revolution, you know. Hungary and Bala and those guys, they rebel and they revolted. How do you think Massa got its name? There's a massacre down there in Massa. People decide they're taking that shit, and they had a massacre. Lives were lost. So I'm saying all of this to say that change is possible. It is there.
Indeed.
And therefore we must be hopeful. And those of us who continue to lend the support, either verbally, financial, whatever. And let me just say one final thing. That has to be done by Dominicans in and out of Dominica. It cannot be left and us feel, well, oh, this is a struggle for people in Dominica. And people in Dominica must not feel that that's a struggle that they're in Dominica. Any one of us, wherever you are on this part of this globe, and you're Dominican and you love Dominica, that's a struggle for you. You have to be a part of that struggle. Okay?
Yeah.
And that is what I would say for now. And again, just to thank all our many folks.
Yeah, we're gonna take Alvin a couple comments from the live feed,
yes,
and
yes.
then we're gonna go back to the panelists here for the final comments.
Excellent.
But the comment you were sort of didn't get earlier was from October's very own. He says here, it's going to be a very long struggle. If you have cow and goats, then Chueyo Putut Munmaji. You remember that song, Alvin? Chueyo.
All right, I remember that. Chueyo.
That is the song this brother, whoever is referencing here. Let's see if we can take some more comments here. Celia Gordon writes, the only step up is for Zed. All right, Celia, we have gone past that point already. We are not going down that road tonight there with you in terms of Zed coming down. We have gone past that. If you're listening to the conversation, as Alvin said, persons overseas, you have to play a point. You have to play a part. Persons in Dominica have to play a part. So let us not have that sort of divide as to where Dominicans live and where they should be at this time. All right, so we'll forgo that comment in the interest of the conversation we're having, Celia. Dory Drago writes, one has to be optimistic. The struggle continues. I like your optimism, Alvin. All right. True words, Carol Ann Ford writes, true words, Alvin, indeed. Ferdinand Lawrence, I gave you a number a while ago. The number is 276-0387 for those of you as well who wants to contribute. That number, you can call that number. I just gave out that number in the chat as well. It is the number of Brother Johnson Boston. He is the secretary of the ERC. The ERC is the board in Dominica coordinating things at this time. So if you have a financial contribution, you can reach out to Brother Johnson Boston, and your contribution financially, that is, will go a long way as to the struggle. Any more comments, Alvin, you think we can touch on before we go back to the panel? Adelaide Paul makes a comments here. You call that weaponizing the people's resources against them. Althea Rennie writes, Lofty, this is shameful. God help us. Indeed, God help us for true. Who else we have here? I think we have some more comments. Any more you see, Alvin?
I think we've pretty much covered quite a few of them that was posted just recently.
And again, folks, the live numbers that you can call into the program, please do justice by our eyes by calling in the live numbers. They are 245-2396, 615-9470. Those of you who have these comments on your chest to release at this time, all right? At least that will prevent Alvin and I from reading sometimes what is your comments on the long side of things. Please call these numbers. That is the new way of doing things here. All right, Alvin. Yes, brothers. Let's get it down to a wrap. We are out of time.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, your final comments, Brother Sharu, as we bring it down to a wrap.
I'll just say, yeah. You know, I want us to understand, and the people of Dominica to understand that approach. The approach we need is a direct approach right now. It's 20-something years you're under the same situation. Yes, there are a lot of talk shows, a lot of program and all kind of stuff. You are the only ones that can help yourselves. And I'm telling to you all, when there are people in positions and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, you have a right to ask them questions. And when you see them on the street, it's nothing violent. You go to them and you demand an answer and tell them do their work. That's the approach Dominica have to take right now. There's too many persons in opposition to be coward for a few that is benefiting. Okay? With Q95 is just a platform. It's a private owned station. We need DBS. The people should go to DBS and demand what will Z want. DBS is where we should get that kind of leverage from. And it's the people that can cause it, because you all are listening to too many programs, too many planning, all kinds of, and nothing happening. So if some persons have to take it on their own, that's where Alvin comes with leadership. Leaders will be fun. So some persons have to demand on their own that they are not getting the right treatment, the right serving by the government. You speak to the people that is in the position where you're supposed to get the assistance and demand to them. Everywhere you see them, you question them. I go with that. That's it. Because too much talk and too much high thing for the local Dominican people. The farmers and everybody need to know they have to just get it going. Now it's time for action. You don't have to be violence, not violence, but you can demand. And as long as I get an opportunity to talk to the people, and I can talk to any platform, I'm going to say to the people, now it's time for action. It's too much talk. A lot of talk and talk not going nowhere for 20-something years. Bless one to everybody.
Bless one indeed. My brother Sharu, well articulated here. Brother Zed.
Yeah, man. It was a blessing, Sharu. Nice conversation, brother. I enjoy your energy, you know.
Thank you.
Sister Celia, I'm not mad if you... yeah, I know I need to be on the ground, man. It's really tough. Lofty boy, what I would like us to do on the 30th of next month, there's a movement to have some demonstration in the country take place. What I would like to ask the diasporans is start connecting with your people at home, you know, in the communities, in the countryside, in the villages. You know, start organizing with them, you know, see if we can, you know, you can prepare yourself to do a bus or two for those times. Start working behind the scene, you know, start doing some work, because it's hard so that the people want to do things, not even travel money is there. So get involved in your communities, find out who the progressives are, what's going on, and see how we can, through little cliques and foreign, you know, community cliques, village cliques, you know, those kind of cliques. That's what's critical right now, that we can facilitate those linkages outside of political parties, outside of order, and have those organizations that are community oriented, so they can respond on demand. They can, you know, we can reach people via text and spread information. Those little things I would like to ask you to start working on them seriously, like develop those kinds of connections, because that's what we're going to need. We're going to need those kind of connections for us to be able to build in a way that we can somersault, you know, the change that needs to be somersaulted into place in Dominica. So that is my message I would like to leave with you tonight. A message of action. Don't think like it's the big things. It's those little things, man. Those little things. Peace and blessings, family.
Peace and blessings, my brother. Yes, indeed. Very, very Interesting comments from Brother Zed, always passionate about his people, about his country. And so tonight was no different. Thank you. Thank you, Zed. Yeah. Brother Thomas.
Yes, well, I too want to just, say to Brother Sharo and Zed, it's always a pleasure to engage with these guys and have that kind of stimulating exchange and conversation. I think we all want best and means well for Dominica. And that's the only reason why we're here. I mean, and Sharo put it quite rightly. This is not a personal matter. I mean, I personally do not know Roosevelt's carrot, you know what I mean, as a, individually. But I think when I see what's happening in Dominica, it concerns me where we are today. I mean, just Saturday, on Connecting the Dot on DBS, both Nigel and Ivona had a guest in the person of Landa Bruno, this young man who's supposed to be doing some dialysis or some kidney transplant. And guess where he's going for the kidney transplant? Next door to Antigua. He's going to Antigua to do a kidney transplant. I mean, I have nothing against Antigua, but why Dominica? Why we can't do a kidney transplant in Dominica? If Antigua can do it, can have the facility at the hospital to do a kidney transplant, why can't we have it in Dominica? And I'm sure Trinidad, he can do it in Trinidad or Barbados, any one of those. But I guess Antigua must be more cost effective for him. It's about 124,000, he says. And he's going to Antigua to do it. And we now in Dominica, I mean, so this is what we're talking about. And I will say, though, that in spite of the fact that, Lofty, even a lot of those quote unquote, as we call them, labor rights, and maybe we should start changing that term, and don't refer to them as labor rights. Yes, they are in a political sense, but even some of those who maybe get in, I think they're discomfortable with it. I think they just right now maybe not seeing an alternative, if I may use that term. I don't know if that's the right term to use, but they're not happy. They're really not happy with it, because if I go back to in '79 when Patrick was thrown out and Eugenia won the election in 1980, the Freedom Party, she won overwhelmingly. I'm sure a lot of the votes she get were Labour people who voted for her. And the following election, she won overwhelmingly again. I'm sure there were, quote unquote, Labour rights who converted and voted for the Freedom Party. Until the third term, where, by third term, people get a little tired with you and say, hey, bring about the change. So all I want to say is that there is hope, okay? Let's reach out to those folks, those Dominicans, and let's treat them as Dominicans and not brand them as any particular way, and see how we could change hearts and mind and get us to a better place than where we are currently.
All right, my brother. Thank you very, very much indeed. On that note, folks, we're going to play one from Third World, music from Third World entitled Rise Up. And then we're going to bring the program down in just a bit.
Them kill the lumber for his own right, but them can't kill the Rasta man at all. Keep on rising, we keep on rising. Say them can't kill the Rasta man at all. The multitudes are coming with their arms open wide, looking for serenity, some peace of mind. I tell them I want peace so then I seek and find. First identify yourself and make you happy in life. Everything that glitter is really gold. Stay positive and the truth will unfold. These things they were written on the ancient scroll. Arrange up your life and set positive goals. No matter how they try to keep me down, I keep rising.
Rise up, Dominicans, rise up.
Even when they try to hold me down, we keep on surfacing. No matter how they try to keep me down.
So all of you tuned in tonight to the Civic Vibes program, we want to thank you very, very much indeed.
Try to hold us down, we keep on surfacing. Rise up. And kings ever sit on them.
A very stimulating discussion you just heard from Brother Zed Lloyd, Brother Jefferson Winston, aka Sharu, Alvin Thomas, and myself were just the anchors of the conversation. So, folks, that is it for us. Till we see and hear from you next week, same time, same place, Sunday, that is.
How they try to keep me down, I keep rising. Down, rise up. Even when they try to hold me on surfacing. Rise up. No matter how they try to keep me down, I keep on rising. Even when they try to hold us down, we keep on surfacing. Rise up.
Bless. Them kill the lumber forest all around, but them can't kill the Rasta man at all. Keep on rising.
To all those of you sent in message via WhatsApp or messages themselves, text messages, that is, thank you very much indeed for being part and parcel of the conversation.
When you give it all you got, and you give.
To all those of you each and every Sunday making it a braving it, as it were,
Rise up.
to showing up under the live feed and commenting, we want to thank you very, very much indeed.
When you put your heart in it and you believe, yeah. Say what you want to say, rise up. Rise up.
No matter how they try to keep me down, I keep rising. Even when they try to hold me down, we keep on surfacing.
I keep surfacing, yeah.
No matter how they try to keep me down, I keep on rising.
So in a nutshell, Dominicans, yes, I know we can make it. We will make it together.
For real, yeah.
Let's not lose hope, huh? Though the struggle may be long and hard, but that too shall pass.
Just put your heart in it and you'll see. Say what you want to say.
We may be going through our very bitter days right now as a country.
They try to keep me down, I keep rising.
But trust me, Dominicans, our better days are ahead.
We keep on surfacing.
So let's rise up, as Ferdwell is admonishing us tonight. Let's rise up, Dominicans. Let's take our rightful place in our country to make our country the much better place in the region.
Every part where you cook, every look where you look, and me you see in front of. And everywhere that you turn.
So until that time, Dominicans, until that time, see you next week, same time, same place on the Civic Vibes platform. Bye-bye now. We love you.
Hey, just can't give the Rasta man at all. Every time you turn around, and me, you see up and down, down. Me and the bus driver, me and the conductor, me and the pilot, and me and the construction worker, me and the mason, me and the tailor, me the sailor, me the ship conductor, me run things. Yeah, rise up.